Well, friends, good morning. These are interesting times to be alive, and in terms of cybersecurity, we're in quite a turbulent state. We are witnessing today how citizens are being subject to attacks, and I think you can hardly find a person who would not be swindled, would not be subject to cyber attacks, and the money are stolen. And they used to be stealing money, and now they're trying to blackmail companies and individuals. We can see the geopolitical tensions increasing, and the question is, here in Russia, in our industry of cybersecurity, what kind of future are we talking about? Will we be able to make sure that we'll say, aha, the attackers are a little bit behind of the defensive forces? And today I would like to talk about our present and future, and to look at this issue at different angles, so to speak. And among our panelists today, we have people from our industry who are involved in cybersecurity in different aspects. I would like to introduce our guests today. And they are Igor Shadaev, the Ministry of Digitalization of the Russian Federation. It is not every day that you have a federal-level ministry paying close attention to issues like cybersecurity, and I see that you are paying a lot of security. Aldar Guzairov is the next panelist from the InnoStage company. And from my point of view, he is one of the most progressive integrators. And Aldar is investing his resources to make sure that the company is building cybersecurity, which would be aiming at getting the right result and preventing risks. And they are the co-organizers of our forum. And it's a great trend, because from the very beginning, we were counting on the PH Days forum to become the platform to unite the industry and to build the industry. So hopefully, in the next year of 2022, we'll have more organizers. Vladimir Sokolnich is the CEO of the Skolkovo Ventures. Yes, Skolkovo is a brand, it's about support, but still it's ventures, it's a real capitalism at its finest. They are all about IRR and mentorship, revenues, and making sure that the smaller startups become big companies. Next is Vitaly Lutikov, deputy head of the Stack. According to my observations, Vitaly is the person who is representing a federal company. He has been working with our industry as the one who is very open-minded person from the business. He is trying to involve the industry to develop normative, legislative documents. Let's do it. He's pushing things forward. I love him dearly. Alexander Muranov, deputy chair of the GPB Bank. He is responsible for many things, and in particular for cybersecurity. And I believe that Alexander and his team were able to build such a level of security. I'm not trying to say it's great and awesome, but we, as the PT company, which for the last 20 years have held quite many big hacks according to the request of our customers. We can see the level of protection. In our internal rating, this bank is among the top 5 of the kind of companies who are able to build top-class, top-notch cybersecurity. And he has a great thinking about business and about cybersecurity, and hopefully he'll be able to highlight some issues we are about to discuss from different points of view. Well, today we would like to make sure that this discussion would be interactive as much as we can. We're going to post a link. Would you be able to pull up the link for a Telegram channel, please? And right there in the commentaries to the first message, you can leave your question for our panel today. And as we progress with our discussion, our team will be able to select the most interesting questions, and we will discuss them and hopefully we will give some good prizes, be it a backpack or whatever, for those who will be presenting the best questions. Could you please prepare the prizes beforehand? So today we would like to talk about very hot and pressing issues of the day, and which will be able to help us to answer the great question: can we, as a country, as an industry, to protect ourselves and maybe to take this whole country and our industry to a higher level, or to be one of the most secure country in terms of the counteracting cybersecurity, and to do it with the Russian capabilities. And maybe we'll be able to even export these capabilities and to take a leading role in the world, in the global cybersecurity market, because we have everything for that. If you look at the high-tech industry, is saying unanimously that Russia has all what it takes to ensure their own cybersecurity. And the global media are saying that Russian hackers are awesome. I've been traveling the globe, and no one is doubting that the Russian cybersecurity solution in terms of technology and stack would be like top. And our engineers are hackers, and they enable us to make a very bold, place a very bold bet in the global ranking. Let's talk about these issues, and I would like to ask you, what is your vision of the cybersecurity industry? What is your perspective? What's the perspective of the Prime Minister and the Vice Prime Minister? What is your feeling about what shall we do about this whole industry before we engage in Q&A? Well, first of all, thank you for invitation. I'm sorry I have kind of raucous voice because I got cold, but I will try to provide good answers. Well, this current context is pretty obvious. We have the increasing rate of digitalization due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and the government is launching many big projects related to implementing digital technologies, and all industries, including the healthcare and education and public services, they are number one in terms of rate of digitalization, because COVID has made it possible to get all your services in electronic format without leaving your house. And despite such a high penetration of e-services, all the risks related to cybersecurity are becoming much more acute. And I can say that we have ongoing discussions in the Russian government, in the presidential administration, that these new challenges, they require some new approaches. And the chair of the Russian government is saying that you cannot hope for a new result doing all the old things, doing all the same. And now, at different places and different circles, we are looking for recipes for some kind of mobilization. And I think as a political task, it makes sense for everyone in the industry and those industries who are maybe the customers of digital solutions. I believe that in the summertime, we will see the set of new measures of mobilization and incentives to be able to meet the new challenges. As for the new challenges, we understand that we have the kind of your next-door neighbor digital crimes increasing. In 2020, we've seen that these kind of cybercrimes have increased, almost doubled compared to 2019. And of course, COVID played into that. And now cybersecurity has become an important political factor in international relations. We can hear this on the news. We can see the new threats actualizing themselves. And of course, behind each threat, there are real risks, and we have to deal with them. And the government and the presidential administration in Russia, everybody is involved in trying to find new solutions. Thank you. Let's begin our series of question and answers. Would like to discuss many new topics, but we are limited because we have only 1 hour of time, and it will not be a blitz format. But I guess let's take for about 45 minutes for each question. If you have anything to say, please take up the mic, and if I'll be really loose in our schedule, I'll be moderating this discussion. And let's go. We will have about 10 minutes for Q&A with our audience in the end. Please write your questions. We want to build our industry-wide communication. And the question number 1. Many people in our industry are saying that now, today, you can build the result-oriented implemented cybersecurity using only domestic, that is, Russian solutions and providers. But if you look at the economy of the Russian cyber industry, 50% of the money spent for the cybersecurity are being spent for the non-Russian, primarily American products. And here comes the question: how can we become those who are using Russian solutions? When we begin to regulate the industry, we don't like it. When we try to persuade, it does not work. My question is, what shall we do about transitioning to the domestic solutions? Do you have to make them to buy Russian stuff, or do you have to persuade them to buy it or to use it? Alexander, can you be the first, please? I know that you've been deliberating on that for a long time, and you are advocating to come to such a moment when all cybersecurity will be built only on the Russian solutions. You've been thinking, you've been speaking about that. Could you please articulate it now? Well, I would like to give you just one example from my past life, so to speak. If you look at the retail or a banking retail industry developing, now you cannot find non-Russian products per se. Basically, the code is being written 24/7 remotely on campus, and the banking retail in 2 years in terms of software has changed completely. All the Indian system, American systems are not used anymore. We have only Russian ones. Yes, it's an open source and things related to that, but still this challenge, which we have seen in the banking world and the consumption world, has resulted in Russia creating its own industry. It is not a problem how to write, what to write on. It is not a problem to buy any software solution. And the banking world has migrated to the Russian solutions. And I believe that that cybersecurity is on the threshold of the same transition, because you build your security perimeter because you have to build it. And I believe that the global world and the global access has ended. 2014 showed us. And the second thing, I believe, that understanding that the cybersecurity is a #1 topic in terms of public attention, customers' attention. At least this is the case in the banking community. You can see for yourself that the main investments which are done in the cybersecurity are being done by the bankers, and not only banks, but today, to be able to preserve information and the money of the client, that means staying afloat. If you don't have it, it's a matter of time before you'll be hacked and you will be sinking. It is not about losing some of your loan portfolio, but one cyber attack can just kill your business. So I'm absolutely convinced that we can build the whole security system using Russian products. And now the question is what we would like to see in the world today. We want to make sure that we have some capabilities of taking some local products and making them industry-wide. We have some small teams and great teams which are making great products, and they will be able to become the national provider with time, and we simply have to provide them support. And of course, in the modern world, big companies, it's easy for them to leave. If you're a smaller company, it's much difficult. But in our world, smaller companies would be a great solution, and they have a great promise, and we have to support them in any way. So in our internal policies, we believe that migrating to the Russian platforms is the goal #1, and we have to believe that in the next couple of years we have to do it, and my co-partners are thinking the same, and we have every confidence that we will be able to do that, and we are willing to work with any team which has the same mindset. Well, Alexander, what is your forecast? In 2 years, will we have any foreign products in the cybersecurity? Or I guess you could say that, and I guess this could be done. But should this be the goal? Because we can also build the trusted network with untrusted products. And I believe that as we are having our internal dialogues and you have the same perspective, the same thinking, it is not like you have to see everybody as the enemy, but you have to manage the enemy. You have to be able to understand what is happening with your untrusted products. It is very important. If your environment is untrusted, this is much, much worse. Anybody would like to take up the floor? Vitaly? Yes, I will. Well, what kind of challenges we're seeing in terms of building this whole cybersecurity perimeter with the Russian products? And the problem number one is Russian professionals. Unless we begin to teach all of our professionals, even in Russian universities, until we have right labs and right testing stands and the Russian-made and not the foreign solutions, nothing will be happening because as they graduate from a university, they know only one non-Russian vendor and they know nothing about Russian solutions. It's a problem number one. Yes, we do some. Yes, we have some progress in this, but this progress is very, very slow, very, very soft. And with the support of the Russian Digital Ministry and Igor, yes, we're thinking about using this kind of educational methodological organizations. We're thinking about we can build some training centers, and hopefully this movement will be of help. But secondly, the second issue would be clients. Well, a client. And now, speaking about the clients, I have the kind of multifaceted problem. First of all, a client has to understand that their goal is to provide security, safety and security, not only meeting some requirements. If you look at the different requirements specified by the Russian regulators, it's always about ensuring security. And this kind of security on paper, so to speak, is being formulated by clients themselves. They do not care of how this will be resolved, as long as the Russian governing bodies and inspecting bodies would not be a problem. Unless they would like to build not the real-life security, not a paper security, we'll be able to do this, because otherwise we have some bad competition between the developers and those who are providing some solutions. It's always easier to just tick the box, and to have some kind of formal solution instead of high-quality solution which does real-life work. So the Russian clients, they have to pay attention to that. Not a formal approach, but the actual approach. And the third problem would be developers themselves. Unless they will listen to the problems and the needs of their clients more, and what kind of solutions they need, and unless they become to fight for those clients, I mean to compete with the quality. And by quality, I mean not only being able to counter specific threats. I also mean some user-related stuff, because sometimes we're so caught up into, okay, we have to fence off and fight off all these cyber threats, but we forget about product support, we forget about servicing, we forget about users, kind of things. Experience. We lose the battle to international companies. Why? Because due to some objective and subjective reasons, they are looking into all these things. And if we'll look and if we'll analyze, I guess you know it firsthand, if we will analyze certain tenders which are won by the international providers, why do they win over Russian providers? Because sometimes the demands are not related to security per se, but the demands are, it's like make it all for the users, and the users should find it very convenient and so forth.
So, if our developers do not pay attention to those requirements, and along with the security functionality, I'm not canceling the priority for the security functionality, but if we don't pay attention to the user interfaces and user convenience, we won't be able to solve this. And one more thing, removing foreign software should definitely begin with information and begin with training. My position is that we should not prohibit anything. We need to create the right conditions for that transition and transformation. But usually those soft and formative measures are not very effective, but at least are conscious before we introduce limitations and regulations and then make a more forceful move. then we'll be fine. So if you don't respond to us informing you about, the idea to move to Russian software, then from some point in time we will have to prohibit it. But those prohibitions should be done very carefully, because even on the Russian market, the competition is not very fair in terms of the security software developers. And if we don't have good competition, if we don't have solid market developing around the cybersecurity solutions, we won't have good results. And if we don't see significant risks from prohibitions, then we might probably do it. So we talk it through, and then we introduce the legislation. Okay. So if people enjoy the quality of the product, then it's fine. And we definitely have different levels of income in Russia, and we do need to respect and love our clients, and probably our clients might suffer because the convenience might suffer. Maksud, what do you think? Well, there's two extremes, like, should we prohibit everything or should we permit everything? I think the right approach is in the middle, saying that we prohibit to use the products that have good competitive analogs from Russia, and maybe within 3 to 5 years we would limit the shipment and sales of the foreign products. With this, the business gets a very clear signal, the ecosystem gets a very clear signal, and the market knows that they need to replace foreign software products with Russian ones. But this is a long-term project, and the government definitely would need to use the governmental support measures and ensure that we have competitive analogs to everything that is used currently. So this is a wise approach to my thinking. Heather, I have a very short question to you. What do you think? Within what amount of time we will remove all foreign cybersecurity products from the Russian market? Do you think in Russia or in the whole world? Well, I asked about Russia, definitely. Well, I would think globally, to tell you the truth, and to continue the discussion. And moving on to the second part of the discussion, we have analyzed the market to understand whether we can create competitive cybersecurity products without any usage of American products with Israel, Europe, and we think that currently Russia is quite capable of doing so. First. So, second, I think the industry, for some reason, is waiting for some prohibitions from the authorities. This is an interesting story. Like, why would the government need to decide? Why would the industry delegate this decision, and instead of uniting and choosing the way of development, just waiting for the decision by the government? So the question of within how many years is answered by 1 or 2 years if we act together, if we unite and really work together on achieving a solid result. But the industry is not just the developer or the vendor, not just the regulator, not the customers. It also includes people, and this is an important question. How do we ensure people stay in Russia? For the developer in Ulyanovsk, for example, what is the cybersecurity industry he's working with? He might be working for American companies. And I think that the task is definitely very serious and important, and it should be solved in its all entirety, understanding the complexity, and by all the players, with the goal of being competitive to the worldwide leaders. Thank you. We've touched on that already, and the Russian market landscape has an issue, I think. Within the industry, during the last 15 years, we have the same faces. Yes, we have new players, but the Russian cybersecurity players landscape is quite narrow. Why don't we see a lot of new players, new startups in the field? What should we do to make them appear? And maybe, Vladimir, I would like you, and then Alexander, you to give us ideas on how can we influence the appearance of new startups in Russian cybersecurity market, and how can we avoid them from going to United States? Well, in the whole world, cybersecurity is a market dominated by big corporations, enterprises, because the clients would like to get both the comprehensive solution and the support and the reliability. So the startup is hard to, usually for the startup, it's hard to provide. But when the new startups appear, big enterprises purchase them. And in the whole world, I think it was like $25 billion spent on purchasing startups by huge strategic players. In Russia, it's around zero, maybe 1 or 2 deals, and often that's not even money paid for the startups. And when the startups don't see the value chain, when they don't see the path to the money, they don't have the motivation to grow. And the investors also lose their motivation because in the early stage, they usually invest money to sell their share and earn some money. But if you cannot sell your share in the company on the later stages, on round CD, whatever, then you won't be able to earn money, and there's no profit in doing so. So for the small companies, this is not a very good situation. For the big companies like Positive Technologies, they don't have enough access to that huge capital that they could use to purchase the small players. It's usually the stock market, bonds and everything. This is quite hard, and because of the geopolitical situation, this might be even very much limited for Russia. And secondly, there are the equity funds private equity funds that would invest in cybersecurity. In Russia, they are afraid of doing so for 2 reasons. First, again, geopolitics, the limitations, the sanctions, and that might really hit dramatically the valuation of the company. And second is lack of the market tools to enable the investors to exit the deal at any point in time. So this all leads to all the players staying very small companies for years. In Skolkovo, we have like 10 to 15 companies in cybersecurity area each and every year, but they stay at the idea stage for years, and they cannot scale up because they don't have the investments. And I hear quite often the idea of, let's invest $500 million in cybersec, and quite often the reply is, why would we need it? We already have this and this company. So you have here the customer, the integrator, the regulator, the government. So what should we do? What should we do to enable this? Okay, clear. Look, first, the investment capital should be available. Probably the government should provide some leverage for the private capital. Second, the order distribution and contract distribution system. Quite often we now see the same companies on the market getting the contracts from the big customers without any clear and open procedure. So I think like 50% of the market now are the government companies, and they should be very openly and competitively played. That will increase the revenues and increase the interest from the investors. And third task is to create the infrastructure for late late-stage investment, and maybe that should be some technological solution, because there should be an alternative model on for the investors and founders to keep scaling their business and to earn some money. There's no infrastructure for late-stage investments right now, and that means that people don't earn money on startups. So, question: we have government banks, and is there any way for big government banks to actually support those cybersec startups? Well, the idea is quite simple. I think the whole world knows the answer, and it's been invented quite a while ago. Maybe 5 years ago, Russian banks started to invest in cybersec startups. I think the banks are currently the most advanced cybersecurity users, for obvious reasons. And the next step, the next pain point, should be governmental infrastructure companies, because we are centralizing all the infrastructure, everything is digitized, and of course the cybersec questions will be of high priority there. And you cannot avoid some government pressure here, because then it won't work. I did not see, unfortunately, I haven't seen anything in the government programs regarding the cybersecurity. So people don't think about it. There should be people who are responsible for having cybersec as an important point of the governmental projects. In terms of the industry, I think we have people ready to invest. We, at least in the banking world, we see a solid desire to actually pay extra money. For the integrator, yes, that won't change, and the customer would work with the integrator. But the integrator can definitely look at the set of companies that provide different products. But if we have some infrastructure to support the startups and let them avoid becoming just a part of the integrator, that might make sense. But the banks are ready for this. That I feel quite intensely. The documents are being prepared. Startups, please come to the integrators. The clients will be ready soon. Yuri, let me add. I think we've started that motion, and together with Tatarstan government, we work on hackathons to really support those startups. And my idea is that we can gather on the PhD next year, and as an integrator, understanding what we need for a bank, we might actually create a track for startups to choose the pitches and be responsible in front of the client, in front of the bank, for what we bring in your infrastructure. Our experience and our project should support the idea that all the experiments are done within our integrator infrastructure, not with the customer infrastructure. Okay, so do I have a two-way commitment? So if they fulfill all the requirements, you take them, right? Well, if I may add a couple of words, I don't believe in the startups having solid access through the integrators. For the governmental market, that is very hard to make. So first of all, there should be increased demand and simplified access. If the startups who have received governmental support have the option for the governmental bodies, for example, to purchase without tender, then or might be then they have reduced access. Unless we introduce something like this, we will pour huge amounts of money on the ecosystem, but that will not give new startups access on the market. Yeah, one example from my side, like a year ago, So we had a startup creating protected operating system, and the offer was that the governmental bodies would implement it, but the startup had only 6 people working on the system. And I would like to support my colleague in saying that the reliability is super important. What do we do if those 6 people run away? So this protected operating system, even if they are super smart, this is a very hard task to support it if it works in the government. And the question is, if today they are here and tomorrow they are somewhere else, what do we do? So before the implementation, we do need to analyze the industries where this is possible, to analyze the types of the solutions. For the governmental sector, this is huge risks if we implement the products that are not supported and not serviced by the provider. And this security that deteriorates with time is obviously not something we would like to support. So I do support startups, but the risks are very need to be taken into account. But if we don't support startups, we will never have those solid big companies. Of course, yeah, I mean it. If the customer would accept the risk of not having someone writing the indicators for the system, then they might implement that system. Something that might become a brick in 5 months. Then yeah, definitely, let's implement it. There should be a mechanism for ensuring that support. Well, a philosophical question from my side. We see that we are overwhelmed with cybersecurity issues targeted against Russian citizens. The phone fraud is the top of the market, and there's a solution. There's a school of thinking that says that we cannot kill this on the source because they change the numbers, they move to different operators, different channels. There's huge mafia that earns money on this. And there's a second idea that if we protect the subscribers and add AI to phone traffic analysis task to analyze the voice and maybe correlate this with the possibility of fraud and send the signal to FinCERT and banks to stop the fraud. So the philosophical and ethical question is: can we trust the AI to listen to all our calls? Can we afford such an experiment on our side? Would you like to say a couple of words? Well, let me, as a victim of a fraud, because whenever we talk about data access, access to the data of our subscribers, we are currently discussing governmental access project to geolocation. There was a huge wave of criticism, when the person has lost the operators to give you the triangulation, the geolocation of a lost person. You need a court decision, and of course we understand that first hours of search are super critical, so a court decision cannot be obtained within hours. So let's maybe create a framework for just the relatives requesting that information. And we got huge amount of negativity on that, and if we ask the subscribers, my thinking is that they will say no, never give AI any access to our voice, and definitely the ministry will not offer this to the market. So they will even agree to, the crime growing and the amount of fraud growing. I think no one wants to follow up on what I've said. Well, okay, so the AI can support us in this. What do you think? Can we make this step? So let me say a couple of words. So before we introduce AI or any other I, let's work on our natural intelligence and work better with those users who make those calls. Improve the ways to target them and identify and punish them, because their IT proficiency is zero. They know nothing about. They are not hackers, and we are just helping those people. For example, I went to a bank recently and saw a huge amount of information breaches about, so we need to introduce the new methods, simple methods of protecting the personal data and supporting our customers. So, in how many years will we win against phone fraud? Like reduce it in half? Well, we can identify the fraud, potential fraud, extremely fast. We are very good at identifying the people within our infrastructure who do this, but we cannot punish them. This is an issue that should be solved immediately. So finding the criminal is now hundreds of times easier than punishing him. And this is something that really is a pain in the neck, because without that public punishment, you lose the momentum. And going back to the creation of information systems, that sending data to the integrators, sending the client data to the integrators is usually among the best ways to lose information. They have good mathematical apparatus to analyze the profiles, but the databases that they have gathered are huge, and you need to take into account that this is not your information. It's just like this. So, winning against the philosophy of sharing your data officially is hard. It's like the Green Party. There are people who try to develop the globe, and people who try to just keep it from all the harm. Well, okay, we are saying that this is not good, and I don't think people who talk about this believe that this all can work. So everyone suffers. Can we reduce the amount of phone crime, phone fraud by a factor of 5 within a year? So what do we do? How do we improve the tools? How do we grow? So this is the question. I think that's a philosophical question, but to my opinion, the society is not ready. And if the society is not ready, then we need to prepare for some negative scenario. Okay, so that was a rhetorical question. Okay, let me share another thought. I think that when the first persons within a company start to pay attention to the cybersecurity issues, the quality of the protection improves significantly. And another opinion is that without the first person's involvement, there's quite a high chance that you won't get any security results. So the question: how do you engage those CEOs or the leaders of the companies to actually spend time on cybersecurity? So, Maksud, I think we'll start with you, and that is a question to you. How can we make them volunteer to champion the cybersecurity agenda? I think this is super important, but what do we do? Well, I think there's a wrong answer. But when we introduced criminal liability, definitely, people started paying more attention. So maybe we need to work on their consciousness. Maybe we need to work on their responsibility. But yeah, just explaining, giving access to the information, talking about the attacks, explaining the results of cybersecurity breaches. Because I think there's a lot of regulations, and probably we should not introduce new criminal punishments. I don't know, maybe if tax things differently. I fully agree. We have all the needed regulations in place. I think when the leader of the company only thinks about cybersecurity when something happens, or when the people from the company kind of ask him or her about cybersecurity, is not a very good situation. But we need to be able to talk to our first person, thinking globally with a lot of issues, thinking about the internal processes and issues and challenges of the company. So the security officer who talks to that CEO, to that first person, needs to be able to use very comprehensive and solid messages and language to talk. Often it's like, you need to buy 10 different security tools for X millions of dollars, and without even an explanation on how this all can help. So any leader has a lot of tasks, a lot of priorities, and to explain that cybersecurity is a support, is a mission-critical thing, is important. Well, I think hackers all over the world are helping our security officers to talk to the leaders. Look, here, we've done this or that, and if you don't pay us $20 million, here's what we're going to do. And the leaders should just understand what are those, first and second things that will happen. And as a company that sees this every time we do investigations, and we see people actually facing those threats of within a week we will get all the information wiped or this or that. They definitely they are definitely affected. So that criminality against the companies has changed. Because previously you needed to have droppers, carders, and everyone to actually rob the bank. Now you can just make the client pay and pay a ransom, and they will legitimately pay your money. Would you like to add something? Well, definitely. information is key, and providing that information to the company leaders is super important. Now, company leaders see their role in the cybersecurity once a year in just approving the budgets, but they need to be deeper within the context, and they need to understand what's going on. The first person should be setting goals to their CISO, saying, hey, here is what my model of threats is. Those questions do not move down. There's no dialogue. Well, quite often we see the security officers not having access to the first person. Within our federal bodies, we have just deceived that there should be someone responsible for the digital transformation, but there's no such solution for security officers. Maybe it's, just a department lead, a team lead. Oftentimes they don't have any access to the company leaders, quite often. And they often don't understand the business specifics. They are just technical people. They understand what Stack is talking about well, but they usually don't understand the business. Well, regarding the security officers and their responsibilities, we were proposing the legislation to actually appoint those people, and we've listened to a lot of criticism saying, don't talk to the leaders of the companies. Well, you see, after some time, no one is started to understand the cybersecurity agenda, and we are again, facing these issues. And I actually bow my hat to the people who were able to appoint those digital transformation leaders for governmental bodies. We just need to do the same with cybersecurity. Yeah, we support you. You are ahead of time here. Well, I think that the lack of dialogue between company leaders and security people can be summarized to different companies having different maturity level in cybersecurity, and quite often, we see the situation changing radically. My next question is:
there is such a myth that FSB, Russian Security Service, should be in charge of the counteracting foreign attack from the foreign hackers. How can we make sure that the Federal Security Service of Russia would be helping us and not replacing the function of the cybersecurity from the possible attacks from the foreign cyber teams? Of course, it is not the Federal Security Service. No, FSB. No. I'm not from the Federal Security Service. I cannot tell you whether they should or should not, be in charge of this cybersecurity function. We're not fully convinced that you're not from the Federal Security Service. Anyway, any defense, it is not only about the special services and some hacker groups and special services, security services. They have to be in charge of something like identifying, blocking. It's all written in the legislation. But no one ever deprived those companies of responsibility to defend themselves. Well, professionals, they should be able to get the input data and a certain toolbox to counteract to this level of attacks. So I do not know who is under this impression. It's the common system and the common understanding that everyone should be involved. And hackers, vice versa, should not be in charge of the internal security services. And also for any, take certain violators, perpetrators, and we all work on the single task of providing security for, be it an individual or a company or the government or the state as a whole. Colleagues, do you have anything to add? Well, let's move on to the questions from our audience. I have a message. It is not a question, but a statement. Maksuta, you came with a coffee, you came wearing sports shoes. I just want to pay you respect for that. And now a question. Let's take very short, like a blitz question. The government is spending a lot of money for the cybersecurity, but oftentimes we know that this is simply on paper. This is not in real life. What the government should do to move from the theoretical or on-paper security to the real-life security? We have been speaking about that today. Can you please all share very briefly about what the Russian government can or should do to ensure the real-life and practical security? Cybersecurity. I suppose that our answer will be that we have to adopt certain standards which would classify the risks. And by the way, this question also implies that those security officers are underpaid. That's why we cannot afford high-quality personnel. Anyway, these standards should identify the rules for infrastructure. And what we're seeing today, we have an opinion that we have to have a big professional market of the SOCs, of the security offices, and the money should be spent, and the government simply cannot afford to hire very expensive developers. They're hiring companies who are building software. The same is for professional services in the information security. Yes, we have the model threat, we buy all that is certified and according to these standards, but it's an ongoing process. We have to ensure the ongoing risk monitoring, and I believe that we should end up with this big market of these SOC centers, which should be adapted for government needs. Dear colleagues, anybody else would like to add something? I think we have to raise awareness and tell companies how scary it is to be under a cyber attack. Many people have no idea how scary it is unless they experience it themselves. You know, it's like a cat running across the road. It may have no awareness that it may be hit by a car, but the people know it. And we have to do the enlightenment campaigns on TV, like that the company may be hacked, and people do not even realize how difficult and scary it may be. Actually, in the chat, we've had a couple of questions of why the Russian government is trying to hide and not really informing the society about the cyber incidents. They're trying to hide cyber incidents and even to build a registry of all these cyber incidents in Russia. I think it's quite a big psychological problem because any big company or entity having a hard time to say that, hey, we've been under attack, and these corporate security officers, they are the ones who have to do this and to make sure that the company gets ROI on investments in cybersecurity. Every year, we're inviting the drones manufacturers to bring them here so that the hackers who are coming to this conference would be able to show how the hackers are going to hack those driverless cars. If you move up to a mid-level, it's an unacceptable reputational risks for our company. Mid-level thinking is that it's quite scary. On the top level, there is a different thinking. If you're testing your security and you're finding these vulnerabilities, it's a top approach. It testifies about your security, that you're secure, not an unsecure. But again, it's a classical scenario in Russia. They're all scared, and maybe this is the answer. We've had many questions about microelectronics and different Russian processors. We are concerned about that because cybersecurity is where we have to be absolutely confident in this environment. Today it has been mentioned about building a trusted environment and trusted element, but it's unchecked hypothesis. Maksud, I would like to ask you, is the work undergoing to build the Russian hardware and software and hardware platforms and production capacities in Russia, which would produce all the electronic components needed for IT industry? Russian people want to have their own microelectronics, and supposedly there'll be no real cybersecurity without these hardware components domestically produced. Well, I want to say that our program for developing production capacities and and incentivizing demand is supervised by a representative from the Russian government. We're going to have a meeting about that. It's a very regular question, and things are being done. Yes, the goal is to make sure that we meet the bulk of our demand in these kind of microelectronic components and products in Russia. On the one hand, we need to create a demand for these capacities, and we have to regulate the supply and demand, and we are going also to introduce some limitations to make sure that we have both supply and demand. We have Alexander, and he just came back from California, as it seems, and he is into microelectronics. I know that. Well, one more question. Many countries are now working on this issue. For example, Japan has said that even in private companies they would like to migrate to local technologies. And again, it's always about stagnation and competition. How can we make sure that, yes, you can isolate yourself as a country in some components, but not to be stagnating at the same time? Where is this fine line or any magic stick or magic pill to balance between these two, dangerous or poles?
Я, честно говоря, извините, я просто отвлекся на вопрос из чата, у нас тут активная дискуссия идет.
Well, the question is again, how can we sometimes be independent and try to defend ourselves from the foreign technologies, at the same time not to close ourselves too much and not to stagnate and not to degrade. It's about looking for a very complex balance. Wherever we have competitive solutions, then we can close our market from the competition. If we do not have such a competitive advantage, we have to set some goals, because if by the time of closing down the borders we do not have our own technical capabilities, we still have to use some foreign-made capabilities, and this would be the major algorithm. Or maybe we can make some kind of turnover situation. It is not the zones where the foreign equipment would be banned, but the zones which have to which will oblige to use the best world solutions, even though it might be contrary to this kind of idea of closing down the country and trying to isolate the country. Okay, friends, we've answered several questions. We have about 4 minutes. I believe that we're being watched today by many professionals in cybersecurity, so I would kindly ask all of them to tell something. We've been speaking a lot about the industry consolidation as the key for changes. Now, each of you, what you would like to say to the cybersecurity community in Russia and beyond? Who would like to take the floor? I can do it. This was not the point of our conversation today, but anyway, we as investors, we like the kind of companies which have very big and diversified markets. Speaking about diversification, of course, we mean export, and we would like to encourage Russian companies to develop such products which could be export-friendly or exported. If your product is bought internationally, that means it's a good product, and the government should be make sure that you can use these products in Russia. If no one except the government itself is buying your product, it's a question. It's a big question mark about the quality of your product. So we would like to encourage both startups and big companies and to orient themselves for export. There are many regions where the Russian solutions are being accepted and will be accepted even more. And there is a good trend. So in 5 years, we've made a leap forward. What do you think could be the market cap of these companies or the turnover? What should be the potential for increasing our export potential, let's say in 5 years in Russia? What would be your perspective? Can you please say it again? I didn't quite catch it. Well, the turnover of the Russian cybersecurity market is $2 billion American dollars. It's difficult to calculate capitalization. What should be the market size in the most optimistic scenario let's say, in 4 or 5 years in Russia? Well, I guess we can take about 10% in the world, given the today's structure of international relations. If it will be 10% of the international markets, this will be about $200 billion capitalization. So you believe that we can get 10% of the global cybersecurity market? No. I mean, in theory, you can do that, because 10% of the global market is not too much. Sometimes Russia has 20 or even 30% of the international markets for some products. Why not? Well, it's quite a big challenge if we're going to have 10% of the global market and 7%. It will be another proof that we have a very, very strong cybersecurity. Now, the share of the global market is like equal to the share of the Russian GDP, which is nothing, like basically negligible number. Again, I would say that I would encourage developers and those companies who are providing services to hear and to listen their clients and customers. And my call for clients and customers is to formulate their requirements for the companies, like to achieve their real cybersecurity goals, and not only to comply with the legislation, and not only trying to do the cybersecurity, like we say, on paper only. Well, now it's a time of prohibitions. Not only we ban something and we're being banned. Yeah, speaking about the whole export potential, and I would say that it's a time of opportunities, because one way or another we have this kind of preferential conditions, so that in Russia we could develop new products and new solutions and to reinvent the industry. Anyway, we have to think about the export potential, and we have to go beyond our borders and getting ourselves ready that this kind of nice and cozy conditions for the business will not be forever. The markets will open. Everyone is expecting the Russian government to do some kind of very proactive steps and actions. We've had many questions in our chat about the program of training cybersecurity officers. I would like to encourage the whole industry to be cooperating even more, because we are increasing the numbers of enrollees, students to be enrolled in the government schools and universities to study cybersecurity. But the curriculums themselves, they're not in line with the best practices, and we expect some proactive steps from the industry. You cannot only to expect everything from the government. You have to do some steps, like, okay, you have the very bad teaching programs. The more consolidated the industry's position will be, the more desire will be on the part of the Russian cybersecurity industry to make sure that the cybersecurity is very strong and the Russia will be strongly protected. The easier it will be for the Russian government to deal with these challenges. I would like to give a short comment in support of what Maksud said. You know, all the educational standards are being built by the expert community, and this is how the Russian legislation is wired. It is the expert community which is formulating all these standards, and I would like to second what Maksud has said. I also would like to say that I've heard it from Maksud. I like this phrase, you know, when an industry is consolidating itself, when they are developing some proposals in a consolidated way, they are even more influential than the Russian government, which may be just working reactively. It is not about consolidation; it's about turning things upside down. Who is going to, you know, pull the strings and, okay, let's consolidate ourselves, let's develop strategies, proposals, and then come to the Russian government, and the government will support us. Because now we have a lot of activities so that as a part of representatives of the industry and the governmental agencies, we can motion proposals about how to change cybersecurity. We are developing a public strategy of cybersec. It is not a replacement of the government strategies. But it is what we can do all together. And to say and to show, like, is it going to be accepted or not, it's an opportunity. And that's would be my encouragement and my challenge. I believe that the world is becoming regional. and we're not really welcomed in this kind of regional factions. I think it's a good starting point, but first we have to clear up things within the country. We have to build our own systems. We have to have the maximum possible localization of of our products, and then we will have our export potential. We have a good school, we have good mathematicians and systems development people, and building products for Russia. I believe automatically they'll be interesting for the non-Russian markets, because what you sell is not always a product, but the infosec system. It is not just the separate pieces that you sell. And I believe that the industry consolidation is very, very interesting, and I believe that this kind of starting point is right now here in Russia. Well, what can I say? I would agree that Russian industry is consolidating, and it's quite a symbolic conference. It's the beginning, so let us to begin to consolidate. Well, dear colleagues, today we're speaking about consolidation, and we've realized that answering the questions, let's keep up this communication beyond today's plenary session, meaning that you can always ask questions, we can do some voting, some polls to get a feedback, and if we want to build a two-way communication, we have to be able to write something, we have to be able to send our proposals to the governmental agencies. Let's find a format for that. Maksud, are you willing to pay a little bit of time to our chat, to read, to write in it, and to hear some ideas? Are we ready to take this commitment to spend a little bit of personal time trying to find this optimal communication tool for the whole Russian cybersecurity industry? Yeah, yes, but we are ready, but within certain limits and reasons. Let us put it up again, the slide with the QR code on the screen. Please add to this, sign up for this chat. We'll maybe post a video of this conversation, and we'll start looking for a comfortable communication form so that we can hear and see one another. Well, friends, I believe it was a very good conversation. We were able to cover some very important issues of cybersecurity, and I'm hoping that this will be a very important contribution towards consolidation, developing a common strategy, and everybody finding their optimal place in this very promising high-tech industry of our economy. And we will take a worthwhile stance and place. Thank you to all the panelists and to all the attendees. Thank you for this session. Friends, we're going to have the closed meeting with Maksud.